Hi everyone, this is Jello, and welcome to Part 5, Your Story. A great story is much more than the sum of its parts. During a session, your role as the Game Master is primarily the omnipotent narrator. Because you plan your sessions in advance, you get to have smooth interaction as your players go through monsters, traps, intrigue, and villains. Draw them in, and make them a part of your living story. The Game Master Guide says this, quote, "The major goal, though, is seamlessness, the appearance that the Game Master has accounted for every eventuality the player characters might arrive at, or even better, that the Game Master is simply the mouthpiece of a world where all things are possible. Such is always an illusion, though, a mask for the Game Master's preparation and imagination. Yet the less time a Game Master needs to spend digging through rulebooks, pausing to think up character names and traits, or not appearing to know what's going on in his own game, the more believable and ultimately the more successful the adventure." Close quote. And that's exactly why we have been planning encounters, NPCs, allies, and villains, so that now we can take those and integrate them seamlessly into our story. As we said in part 1, we always want to design our campaign with the players in mind. Doing this makes everything easier. Knowing what your party is playing, a little backstory, helps you make some really easy decisions right away. It also helps you tailor encounters, NPCs, allies, and villains. All of these elements help us to build our world, to set our campaign. So let me show you some tools that will give you an overall idea of your story and help you flesh it out. Here in the Game Mastery Guide, on pages 52 through 55, we find some really helpful tools for Game Masters. Again, we have some tables, rollable tables, that can really help. We've got plots on a D100. You need a random side quest or some idea on what to do with your storyline. Boom, roll it. Do you need a plot twist? Maybe they're seeing everything coming and you want to just change it up a little bit. You've got a D20 rollable table here. We've got MacGuffins. If you don't know what a MacGuffin is a plot device in some form of a goal, a desired object, other motivator that the protagonists, your players, are trying to pursue. You also have cultural titles from around the world. These can really help you flesh out and just add depth to your world with realistic titles, areas, kingdoms, etc. And lastly, we have words every Game Master should know. These are... they're fluff. They really are. These ones are fluff, but they spice up your descriptions. They add depth. They make the characters and the players get drawn in because you're not saying the corridor was straight. You're adding words so that it comes alive in their eyes and in their imaginations, just as it would with an author. Okay, location, 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 also known as setting. You have probably had some great ideas spinning through your head during all other parts of this series. Probably before then. Great. Remember that everything we've covered so far was to help us navigate the players through the story. We'll get into this more in detail during world building, but your story needs a setting. Dungeons, planar, taverns, urban, water, and wilderness. Each of these has its own section in the Game Mastery Guide, Chapter 7, starting on page 174. This includes handy pages, and I mean an entire chapter of descriptions, and a toolbox for each setting with rollable tables and pages of charts to help you out. You've got everything from map symbols to ecology. Have you really thought about ecology? Food and water, shelter and access, all kinds of things that they have spent really a ton of great time to make your life easy. Let's get to one of the toolboxes. There we go. Just take a look at this. It's amazing. Rollable tables, pages of charts, helps you to design, flesh things out. Okay, places to find it. I want types. a glacier of poison water. These are fantastic, just fantastic. Entrances, rooms. If you don't want to put too much thought into it, just get out your die. This is just amazing. And this is available for all of the different settings. Encounters, strongholds, ruins, planar traits, everything. This whole chapter, Chapter 7 of your Game Mastery Guide, just covers this whole section of the adventure. And use those tools. Every time I pull up one of these toolboxes, it's been in your book the whole time. I just want to bring it to your attention. Use those toolboxes to help you out. I need an underwater ruin encounter. Bam, it's there. I'm done. Now I can just focus on the important thing, the players. Alright, another word about planning now. Your campaign may take place entirely in one area, like a city or urban campaign, or the players may traverse all of these adventure settings. Because of this, do your best to have story-driven things be specific events. Put your planning time into the settings they will be in the most, and that can change even between sessions. If your players decide for whatever reason to stick around, that you at least know what's going on around them. Even with the most careful planning, you never know what the players will latch onto or like. Your entire campaign plan can be derailed if you refuse to be flexible. Don't take away all of their choice just to make your moment happen exactly when and where you want it to. That's why we plan all of our story-driven encounters and boss fights ahead of time, so that we can drag and drop them into the setting when we need them. Sure, you may need some minor tweaks, but overall you save a lot of time this way. Your players can tell when they are being railroaded. They hate it. So don't do it. 10 minutes of prep work can make the difference, and it's so worth it. Crazy ideas? Now, there's nothing wrong with trying something completely off the wall, but let your parties know beforehand that you're about to test something, preferably during a less important side quest or a single session between campaigns. Most players are really understanding about this, so just be sure to get their feedback afterwards. Sometimes they need a silly arena match between campaigns to take out the stress while you regroup. The ultimate goal as a game master is to be as seamless as possible, turning every player choice into a smooth narrative of adventure. Almost a decade ago, I had the blessing of being a player in a campaign where the game master did this perfectly. More impressive because it was a pickup group. None of us knew each other before that started. The vibe during the entire run was that no matter what we thought of or wanted to do, he had an answer for it. It was like he had prepared for everything. In reality, he hadn't. He told us honestly after our last session that we made him work for every bit of that seamlessness. He showed us how all he could do for each session was have his encounters planned and bullet points of the story. So let's take this back to our very first statement of the series. Plan with your players in mind. Let them focus on the story while you dance behind the scenes, and it will appear to them seamless.